you talked about mergers, acquisitions, 5 to 10 companies that we really need to look at when this industry starts to retract. You said it's heading in the right direction. For our viewers that are focused on the public equity side, as far as investing in certain companies, I'll put you on the spot here. What companies do you like? Hey everyone, welcome to this TDR Psychedelic Exclusive. I am your host, Shad Dales, as we talk psychedelics today. A lot of people have reached out to us asking us what is the current cash position for a lot of these companies, their burn rate. A lot of companies right now going through some tough times, but the science is still there. So it's a crucial time as we turn a corner for the growth of this industry, and we want to know what those next steps are. So we bring in our guest today. He's Cody Shandraw. He's from Ambria Capital, which is based in San Juan, Puerto Rico. It's a a venture capitalist firm that invests heavily into the psychedelic space. So we want to learn. Cody, good to see you. We've heard a lot from you on Twitter, but great to finally connect.
Appreciate you having me.
Appreciate it. Millennial entrepreneur Anthony Verrill joins us once again. Anthony, good to see you.
Good to see you. Glad to talk psychedelics for once. Take the onus off the cannabis and crypto angles. Ready to dive into this.
Not a bad strategy for an early week podcast. So as I said off the top, Cody, tough times in the public psychedelic space, to say the least, with many in full capital preservation mode or even getting into creditor protection. So in your own words, where do we currently sit in the industry, both on the public and private side? And what are you expecting over the next 6 to 9 months, trends that we're going to see within this industry?
You know, it's funny that we're at this stage. I had a conversation back in 2021. I think I actually published an article on it too. The hyper growth cycle of this industry was only going to last so long, and we all seen it with the cannabis phase too, right? I mean, you have the introduction, all of these companies rush to market, and fundamentals mean absolutely nothing. Cash positions, it seems like the well is never going to run dry. You're, raising capital forever at insane valuations. And now reaching that maturity phase where the shakeout period, growth is slowing, focus starts to shift towards expense reduction. And now we're going to see the consolidation aspect.
Consolidation for sure.
Yeah, it's just, it's a natural growth cycle of any industry, especially an emerging industry that grew as fast as this did. Talking crypto experienced the exact same thing, cannabis experienced the exact same thing, and now we're finally at the tipping point with psychedelics, and we're here. You opened up with a great point. The science hasn't changed. If anything, it's gotten a lot stronger.
Yeah.
The data is there. Now it's going to be a fact of, is it going to be a patent war for some of the drug development companies? You're going to see a land grab, I think, in the clinic space, especially for the guys that focused on profitability and insurance early on that maybe didn't grow as fast as some of their competitors did. I'm actually personally looking forward to the next 6 to 9 months. I think where a lot of the guys kind of stepped back a little bit and kind of want to see how this develops. This gives me all of the right indicators that the industry is moving in the right direction. I'm personally excited about this. And now, you kind of see the general investors that maybe aren't in the day-to-day like we are. The confidence is starting to come back. You had that really weird period between like the end of 21 and mid 22 where everybody was throwing money at these public companies. Like not the private cos, the public companies for ideas that they didn't understand. Started getting burned on the stock side at the end of 22, and then they started to step away. You've seen volume across the board dry up for a lot of these guys, where now that the kind of big 5, maybe to 10 companies are going to start seeing, I think you're going to see the volume start increasing because they have the reputation that they're going to be able to weather the storm.
Yeah, it's going to be a great time to have dry powder. From an investment perspective, are you seeing like fresh powder come in yet, or most people are kind of still just waiting on the sidelines for that 10-car pileup and come in and get some assets on sale?
Yeah. So shockingly, the biggest checks I've seen come into some of the other funds. We don't raise money at Ambria. We're a closed fund, so it's literally myself and our partners. But have great relationships with a lot of the other bigger funds in the space, and I know that there are some very, very large numbers being thrown around. I joined Fido Partners,
really?
Cannabis Fund. Yeah,
I know Brett. I know Brett Finkel. I know Brett Brett quite
Yeah,
well.
so
Yeah.
they started up a psychedelic arm, asked me to come on board, ended up doing that. We've had better discussions with investors the last 3 months than we
Really?
did
Yeah.
the previous six. And then Negev Capital over in
Yeah.
Israel, they're
Yep.
Okay.
launching a $250 million fund.
I mean, where do you think
So
that's going to go? You think that's going to go into like drug development and like double down on investments, or like more
it,
so go into like the picks and shovels and like infrastructure, like you had said, like clinics could be a potential land grab.
No, I think you're going to see two focuses. I think that the land grab for the clinics is going to be one vertical, and I think the drug development is going to be a completely separate one. Negev will end up staying in drug development. I have a
Yeah.
feeling that's
That's
where their
smart.
expert. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's where their
Yeah.
expertise is. I mean, they would have to build out a completely separate team to identify the real estate assets. So I think that's where that's going to go. But that's a drop in the bucket for what's going to be required, right? I
Oh
mean, we're
yeah.
talking. You look at the clinical landscape, that's pretty identified to exactly what's required. The drug development space, I think $2.9 billion has come into that since 2019.
Yeah.
You're going to need, let's just say, between Atai, Beckley, Gilgamesh, Compass, I mean, you're still going to need at least 7 or 8 billion more dollars to get these things through phase 3 clinical trials. So,
So so what happens then? Like you think like Negev Capital, as you said, they want to raise $250 million towards their fund. One, can that happen? And as we see, a lot of this money, and you think it will happen. Like, what's the timeline that you think this starts to happen?
I think that they'll probably start, we're starting to see the biotech indexes start to creep back up.
Yeah,
They were kind of the first ones to fall, right? Like kind of before everything else did, banking,
absolutely.
technology. It was really the biotech space because obviously we all know the first thing to go are the highly speculative
Yeah.
Yeah.
industries in those downturns. So I think that they're going to raise the money. I think that they're looking for more targeted biotech specific investors, and especially the guys that have been kind of emerging industry type of investors that are looking at the
Yeah.
stem cells and things like that were really early on, and now that industry is starting to mature, looking for those asymmetric upside type opportunities. And I think that's probably where they're going to go. It was really, I seen an interesting stat the other day. uh, the highest percentage of new drug trials for last year was the psychedelic drug trials.
Was it really?
I
Yeah,
mean, I
it's
feel like
not
it
talk.
should be.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it's not
Didn't know
talked
that.
about. You would think that that would be leading a lot of the news stories that are out right now. Don't hear about it.
So keying in on that, like what gets you excited, or what do you see coming down the pipe later this year as far as like a catalyst for the space?
Listen, obviously, I think the whole industry is waiting for the maps readout,
100%.
right? I mean,
100%.
I'm expecting approval Q1 of next year. The
Okay.
data is incredible. I
I've
mean,
heard that's even conservative too. You could see it actually happen even sooner. But if the FDA were to approve MDMA and psilocybin, similar to what Australia did, Canada's going to follow suit. That's going to turn the corner. And
it
one can only
changes.
wonder, like, do you see a company like Maps eventually going public?
If I had to guess, I think we're probably going to see an acquisition similar to what Jazz did, or maybe the Mindset Pharma and the Atsuka deal. I, you're talking. We all know, right? Getting the drug approved is one thing. Commercializing a drug is
Yeah.
Yeah.
something
Yeah.
completely different. I mean, you're talking hundreds of millions of dollars in marketing. Nobody's talking about the training. We're talking about the clinic space. The ketamine clinics are great, right? I think there's 1,800 clinics currently in the United States that are providing ketamine. 1% of those are going to be available for MDMA. They're just not built out for that. Ketamine, you're in a room for 20 to 45 minutes and you're out of there.
Yeah.
That's it. MDMA, you're in a room with a therapist for at least 6 hours,
I
but
know.
really it's probably going to end up being 8 hours. It's really kind of incredible. We were in Washington, D.C. with the Psychedelic Medicine Coalition that just launched the super PAC up there to try to help influence, some government funding for these things. Like, you look at the VA hospital, you have 1.9 million soldiers that are already qualified for this treatment.
Already qualified.
Not going to be done at a VA hospital, which we already know are
No.
way over capacity as they are. You're
Yeah.
waiting 6, 9, 10 months for treatment there, they're definitely not going to be taking patients and sitting them in a room for behavioral health therapy for that long of a duration. So where's the infrastructure going to come from? That's really, that to me is going to be the largest catalyst, because then you start looking, you have Compass right around the corner with psilocybin. That's going to be a very similar clinical infrastructure for MDMA. Let's say both of these approvals happen in the next 12 to 18 months. The delivery, without that happening, it's not going to be done anywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm very thankful for a lot of the, let's just call them OGs in the space that are practicing right now in smaller facilities out of their homes. But for major adoption to happen, you're talking insurance and doctors prescribing, that's not going to be done anywhere other than a brick and mortar clinic.
Doctor,
do you see these therapies ever getting to, I guess, the home level where the actual patient can be taking it home, or it always being in a controlled clinical environment?
It's a good question.
I think low dose. Yeah, I think you will see companies, there's a lot of obviously really interesting clinical trials being done with very high loading doses, and then maintenance low dose. That will live on the counter in your bathroom, just like every other pharmaceutical that you have.
Yeah.
But high dose, there is no way, at least for me personally, I don't ever see it happen. You got to think about the liability. What would happen? Let's say the FDA does approve a take at home
That's
LSD,
what I mean.
MDMA. Dude, and one person gets in a car crash or, anything. God forbid one bad thing's happen. You're talking about liability for the entire industry, and at that point, I don't think the juice is worth the squeeze. So
I mean, I've always thought that you can, obviously microdosing is great, but you can turn any microdose into a macrodose with enough. So it was and does the cost benefit work with psychedelics when you have to add in the clinicals and, like you said, that uptake time of those 4 to 6 hour sessions? I mean, it's a very expensive process. All things considered, versus an SSRI or the traditional ways, which are more so patching it up versus therapeutically curing it.
Well, there was a report that I posted over the weekend that Australians are going to pay $25,000 out of pocket. I don't know what that looks like, what that $25,000 gets you, but needless to say, that's a lot of money.
I mean, I think it matters on the efficacy, because I've seen what treatment-resistant depression and bipolar depression looks like firsthand. I don't care how much money it costs. I'd pay $100,000 if there was a therapy that could be administered that would have long-term effects of subsiding it. There's no amount of money that I would pay to be able to cure that, versus watching trial and error, going to a therapist with SSRIs, with benzos, with everything else. That doesn't work. I've literally lived this, and that's why I've been so attracted to psychedelics in that case.
It's interesting that you bring that up. So we're talking about cost associated, right?
Yeah.
So you talk about SSRIs and a therapist. Most people on SSRIs are already going to a therapist. So that's really not going to change. And I don't think that this got enough coverage. Actually, I'm not sure it got any coverage because I didn't see it anywhere. A lot of people don't know AMA, the American Medical Association, approved 3 psychedelic billing codes in February. Did you see that news anywhere?
No.
I knew about ketamine. Those are ancillary to the ketamine ones that were passed last year or the year before?
Those are ancillary to the ketamine ones.
What was the announcement?
There was no announcement made around it.
Or not announcement, but what was, I guess, involved in that? Go ahead.
The therapy associated with the psychedelics, and they're also the recording of the treatment protocols themselves.
So they're walking before they run, but those are necessary steps. Once they get more of the data from the actual science, this could actually move a lot quicker than what people are originally thinking then.
So I think, if I had to take a guess, we talked about the VA, right? So we talked about the almost 2 million people, and that number is probably closer to 7 or 8 million, if we're being honest. But you're talking about some of the baddest human beings walking the face of this earth. Most of them don't want to say anything is wrong ever. So, I'm guessing that number is higher. But if you're looking at the VA, you know that you don't have the capacity, right? So, like, what does traditional treatment look like for a VA hospital? Let's say you have alcohol use disorder.
Mm-hmm.
The VA is going to send you to a behavioral health center. You're probably going to do a 30-day inpatient stay. It's all billed to the VA. You don't pay out of pocket for that.
Right.
Will the psychedelic industry end up looking very similar to that? I'm guessing probably so, where there's going to be a referral network for these types of treatments. What needs to happen before that happens? Those types of insurance codes would need to be added. It's very strange that, knowing how close MAPS is to approval, that those codes were kind of pushed through and nobody talked about them and never existed.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you talked about mergers, acquisitions, 5 to 10 companies that we really need to look at when this industry starts to retract. You said it's heading in the right direction. For our viewers that are focused on the public equity side, as far as investing in certain companies, I'll put you on the spot here. What companies do you like?
Listen, we've been very early investors in Atai. Obviously, have been a little disappointed with
Yep.
the performance of the stock lately, but the company is in a very strong cash position, has a giant pipeline. I mean, if you're looking for, I guess, a public company right now that has that type of upside, I think it's probably going to be leaning towards Atai. Compass, obviously, super far down the development side. We
Yeah.
know that psilocybin is an extremely safe drug. A toxicology profile out of this world. I mean, very few pharmaceuticals can say that. I mean, look at Tylenol or aspirin. I mean, way more dangerous than psilocybin could be. That's obviously, you're going to be paying a premium on that just because of where they're at in their clinical trial stage, but another strong one. If I had to throw out one more on the drug development side, it would probably be Mindset Pharma.
Yeah, I hear that a lot. Definitely hear that a lot.
Look at the pipeline that they have.
Yeah,
I mean,
and a partnership already with the pharmaceutical company, right?
yeah. So what is this company going to need to raise? Really, probably nothing, unless they want to keep developing brand new families of molecules. But at this point, everything that they already have is paid for.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so if you're looking for that moonshot, it's probably Mindset, I would have to say. And then on the clinic side, I mean, listen, I think it's going to be the two companies that are running the most profitable clinics. It's going to be Numinous and Irwin Naturals. Those are going to be, in my opinion, the two leaders. They will be the CVSs and the Walgreens of the clinical infrastructure of this space.
Numinous got a lot of partnerships with MAPS right now, that's for sure. And that's a story within the story that you got to follow through. So right now, as we look, we said like it was a great time 18 months ago, 24 months ago, money being thrown everywhere in this industry. Prices have been down over 90% for a lot of these companies. You outlined a couple, but judging by what you're saying, and I don't want to this isn't investment advice, but if I'm reading into this, is this a good time to get in right now when you look at these prices, considering what you're thinking, how this will unfold?
100%. It's unfortunate it is. Listen, it's going to hamper the sustainability of these smaller companies and competitors, right? It's one of those things. I think, though, as maturity, especially in the drug development side and the clinic side, is achieved, you're going to see the barriers to entry become a lot higher for the other guys that want to start, right?
Yeah.
So I think you're going to see the competitive landscape, not only, number one, become more clear, but the cash flow and the profitability, especially for the clinic side, are going to become very apparent that there's only going to be a couple leading dogs in the race, and that's just going to be it. So if I had to, again, not investor advice, but I would say that right now, if you were to identify the top 2 to 3 clinic companies and then the top 5, maybe 10, drug development stories, I think that this is the time. Listen, we've all lived through these types of cycles in other industries.
Yeah.
This is a global phenomenon right now that the entire market is contracting. Never lasts forever. So if you have your convictions, now's the time to dig the heels in the sand, lower the cost basis a little bit, especially if you're already invested in some of these bigger names.
Yeah.
And you're going to have, that long-term upside that you're looking for.
So you still like a tie. Interesting.
I do. Listen, do I think that a Tide looks the same as it does today in 24 months from now? I don't. I think it's going to be a completely different company.
Okay. Okay. Um, Interesting stuff. I know Anthony has been pretty blunt on what he thought of Field Trip Health, but wanted to bring that up. And what do you think we've learned? You know, what's the big takeaway that investors can learn from what happened to them and to avoid investing in situations like that moving forward? And Anthony, feel free to chime in.
Listen, I love this. The last 6 months, I would say 10 to 15% of every single person I've talked to, investors, VCs, operators, this is the main thing that comes up. Again, it gets back to what we talked about, right? Cash flow and profitability should have been the primary goals for a company that was running clinics. I don't care if you run a dentist's office, an OBGYN, mental behavioral health center.
Yeah.
Literally no other business. I don't care if you run a janitorial services company.
Yeah. How you making money?
Yeah, man, that's it. There was literally zero emphasis on profitability for that company almost since inception. And listen, again, talking about the business life cycle, you had that introduction phase, they did very well. You had that hyper growth phase, they did very well. But as you reach that maturity phase, it wasn't there, man. There was no focus. And then the company split. They were wanting to develop drugs, and then the reunion thing kind of spun out of there. And there was just, there should have been, whether that comes down to the executive team, whether that comes down to the board, everybody can point the finger all around. There were so many mistakes that were made there, whether it was TI improvements, moving into markets that they didn't understand the competitive landscape in, spending too much money on marketing. I mean, there was, like I said, it was really hard. And full disclosure, we were very early investors in Field Trip. Yeah. I did almost every single investment round into the company. We exited, pretty early because obviously as we were going through the company's filings, it became pretty apparent, that there were some very large holes just operationally that took place. So
been hearing this for the longest time. Pathway to revenue, front and center. Forget institutions. The science is there, but it's pathway to revenue.
Well, I remember reading the deck for the first time, and I was like, "How are you guys going to make money?" I was like, "There is not a single mention in here about revenue, profitability." I was like, "It seems like you want to create a bunch of cool shit in LA." And do home
which they did,
but that's not a business model, unfortunately. No. But yeah, I mean, I share the exact same sentiment as Cody, and he said it great as far as that goes. But we saw it in cannabis, some of the major LPs,
we didn't make it for an hour.
I mean, yeah, these are startups. You make some operators make correct moves, some operators make bad moves, and they happen to be a casualty of the industry.
Yeah, that's it. I mean,
you guys sound like you're on the same page. You two play golf together?
Maybe soon.
Last question. I put you on the spot before, but if you're an investor, and I'm not saying the amount, if you put, let's say, $100,000 into the right companies in this space today, what do you think your return on your investment could be, let's say, in 2 to 3 years for this industry based on its growth?
Yeah, it's a tough one.
That's a tough question.
Yeah.
Hey,
again, let's look at.
This is for our YouTube short.
I love it. I would look at this from two separate aspects, almost like the funds are going to. If you want long-term sustainable returns, the clinic space is going to be where you want to put your money because let's just say you have 50 companies that are developing drugs. Again, most of these are going to be experiential medicine that need to be done in a clinic. You're going to have to go somewhere. That's only going to be with a few major players. Mm-hmm. So if you want the safety of returns, let's say maybe 200 to 500% over the next couple of years.
Wow.
I would go on the clinic side because again, I think that there's going to be very big names. Like you see, most people pick up medication from CVS and Walgreens, right? This is going to be the exact same, but instead of picking up medication and going home to do it, you're going to take it inside of one of those clinics. So I think
Interesting.
that is going to be one side. Again, if you want that giant upside, the drug development, listen, man, it's risky. It's either going to be worth a lot or nothing.
So the
it's a
more
gamble.
conservative approach you think is the clinical side, and as you said, Irwin and Numinous are two companies that come to mind, is what you're thinking.
100%. I honestly, I mean, Revitalis is definitely in there.
Yeah.
Heading
Dude,
Health is in there, but
I wrote $100,000 check into Revitalis that I'm getting my teeth kicked in on. That I'm
don't feel
still in
bad,
the
pal.
yeah.
So did I.
That
Except it was a
I'm
little
still
bit
in
over
the
100.
yeah. I'm still holding the paper.
Yeah, listen, Catherine's a great operator, though,
She's
man.
great. She's awesome.
Very
But
good.
But
Yeah.
again, like as you look at cash flow and profitability, those are
Yeah.
two things that need to be, really, especially over the next couple months, focused on. So,
Okay.
I do think that there's going to be a couple smaller people that play in, but as far as the big dogs in the industry, I think it's going to be very tough for someone to compete with the two of them.
Yeah.
And then the drug side, like I said, I mean, you could be talking insane multiples. I mean,
Yeah, I hear you.
when those
Risky.
when those pharma bets hit, they hit hard. So, but I think
Diverse.
95% of them are going to be zeros on the balance sheet.
Yeah.
Yeah, there'll
Cash.
be a GW. There'll be a GW
Yeah.
in the psychedelic space. We just don't know who it is yet.
Yep.
Cash flow and diversification. Last thing I'll ask, and I think a lot of viewers will want to know this. Well, there's other funds within the space. There's, like you said, Negev Capital, the Palo Santo Fund, the Conscious Fund, Ambria, as you indicated. How does one differentiate one from the other in this space?
Man, I think that the funds all have the really own individual niches at this point.
Yeah.
Where we're kind of we had a very interesting strategy, and I remember a couple of years ago, I won't name the managing partner who it was. He was like, "Dude, are you out of your mind?" He was like, "You've touched he's like, you've touched the technology side, you touched the clinic side, you touched the drug dev side." He's like, why don't you just pick a lane?" And I was like, "Dude, it's like because I don't know what lane is going to end up being the
Yeah.
fastest." So I wanted to have a super diversified portfolio. Talking about Negev, like super drug development focused.
Yeah.
I
Good point.
think that there's going to be, again, small percentage of those that win, but the ones that do are going to be insane returns that are going to make up for all the ones that didn't pan out.
Yeah.
You look at Palo Santo, very similar approach. You look at Eater or Fido, it's very kind of similar. Like they have a couple different focuses, some with technology. Fido's all picks and shovels, almost no drug development. So, I think it's going to kind of depend on the investor and, kind of what route they think is going to be the most interesting for them. I think that you're going to see, especially on the clinic side, you're going to see very large, traditional healthcare real estate focused investors come into that side. It's going to be interesting to see which one of those psychedelic funds kind of really take that vertical and run with that baton, because I think that's going to be a completely different set of investors that are multi-billion-dollar. I mean, look at some of the healthcare REITs out there right now.
Yeah.
I've got a couple of buddies that run large healthcare REITs in the southeast and in the northeast, and psychedelic clinics are on their radar. They're starting to phase out of ambulatory surgery centers and now start to look at as psychedelic clinics as an asset class.
So Sabra Health, SBRA, $800 million commitment to the behavioral health center. You think all of that money is going to go to traditional therapists and things like that? I have a feeling probably not.
This has been great, as much as it's been challenging times to say the least in the market conditions that we're in and some of the verticals that we're covering. But, some of the conversations I've had is, like you said, the next 9 months, it really is encouraging news on the horizon for the industry. But I like how we brought you in to talk a little bit more in depth as to how institutions are viewing this and what some of the strategy is. But I hope our viewers find this helpful with some of the information. And leave a comment below. Let us know if there's any more questions you want to reach out to Cody and let us know what they are. We'll make sure to reach out to him and get the feedback for you. Thanks for so much for checking in here today. This has been great. Anthony as well. Good to see you. And most importantly, let's keep in touch.
Appreciate you, brother. I'm always here for you. Let me know when you're ready.
All right. Thanks, Cody.
All right. Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
Hey everyone, thanks for watching. And if you want to learn more about the emerging industries that we cover, then leave a comment below and let us know who you want us to interview, the questions you want asked, and the information that you want to learn. We want to hear from you. As usual, click on that bell for all notifications to get the latest information. Share this video with your network, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel because we would not be here without you. Thanks for watching, everyone.